Good morning. So this morning, I typically read my Bible from my phone. I thought, I kind of feel like I want the physical paper in my hands, and my new friend Aaron, I asked him if there was a lost and found Bible somewhere, and he said, "Well, would you just use any Bible?" And I said, "Well, if it's NIV, preferably, because that's what I studied for the lesson." He said, "Well, what if it's pink?" And I was like, "Sure, it doesn't matter to me. I've got daughters." I'm pretty sure he already knew where he was going because he came back in like 30 seconds. What if it was pink? As if to say there was another option, apparently. So I feel like I need to tell you, even though I have preached from a pink Bible before, but this makes twice. I am blown away by this conference. And I don't say that of like, oh yeah, that's just the cool thing that a guest would say. But I know it's not just Matt. There's a huge team that's put together all this. To say I had a certain expectation, I guess would not be accurate, but I don't know what I was expecting, but the level of organization, the thought put into all these topics, and then the facilities of this building. I know when you go somewhere, you kind of get used to it. And I was told that, yeah, we're trying to make them better. I'm like, this place is fantastic. And a turnout on a Saturday in the midst of really busy lives, I'm like I said, I'm blown away, and I'm really excited to be a part of this. I committed to the opportunity, and I was very excited that I was even considered, honestly. Like he said, I throw some silly stuff on Facebook. It's my life, but it is pretty silly most of the time. I didn't know it was a marketing tool, but it is for me at this moment, I guess. After I committed to that, I thought, well, my daughter is both of my daughters are cheerleaders, but the older one cheering for a high school team, and I thought, well, it'll be okay. I'll talk to her about me maybe missing one game. I'll come up on Friday evening. Well, check the dates. Homecoming. And I was like, can't do that. You can't leave your state, go to another state to talk about some parenting stuff and skip something from your kid, right? A little counterintuitive. So I thought, well, what do? We leave at 2:30. So I left at 2:30 this morning. We had our homecoming festivities. I reminded my daughter that this is the last. We always talk about the last, and now it's become kind of a joke because we take turns getting teary-eyed about it, so now we've tried to make it so much of a joke that we're not teary-eyed about it. But had homecoming last night, so my eyes are a little dry, probably because only 2 hours of sleep is apparently not enough. But I feel good, or at least I feel caffeinated. The snacks are phenomenal, so I've already had a good time, and I've never had a lead-in to speaking that involved a game like that, so I'm going to be expecting that from here on out when I get back to work. I do bring you greetings from Harding, but I more so bring you greetings from a parent that is also trying to figure it out. To say I have the right answers, I definitely know where to go find them. And I definitely know that the Spirit is going to work through us as we strive to do what's right in all things. But to come here and act as if I'm an expert that can kick this off, far from it. I did go back through just kind of estimating the number of conversations I have in a given week over the course of the time that I've worked at Harding, and then also the time as a youth minister and a children's minister. And on the low end of an estimate, and I estimated based on 30-minute conversations that might take place during a week, taking away the topics that are, somebody just has a quick question, but something that somebody wants to talk about. And doesn't necessarily mean it's heavier topics like we're going to get to discuss today, but somewhere around 8,000 or 9,000 of those conversations. And I thought, oh, wow. Well, at least I have quantity of experience. Quality, I'm not sure about. But I brought my notebook, the same as you have, and that my plan is to fill this thing up from input from you, from the other speakers. But I'm excited for this moment, and I think you seeing this picture anybody wants to, or everybody wants to show off their family, but I think that it's important for us to realize the differences that all of us have. There's not another person in this room that shares your exact experience. Even your spouse doesn't share your exact experience. You have some shared experiences that are very similar, but all of us have walked in different shoes to this moment. And so in some ways, we are all an expert because we have an experience that no one else has. Then we also all share in the fact that none of us are experts because we haven't walked in the shoes of everybody else. And so it's going to take the team. And so I really appreciate this opportunity. I'll introduce these folks. Starting on the far left is Isaiah. This picture was taken around the first of the year, so this is a few months old, so especially the little guy's looking different. But Isaiah, far left, he is 90 miles an hour, whether you're with him or not. The other side, his older brother, got the oldest in the back, but the next oldest is Tatum. We call him Tay or Tay-Tay. He has a conscience. His conscience also covers Isaiah's. And so far, we're hoping he grows into one, a conscience that is. The girl holding Isaiah, that's Addie or Adalynn, and she was who was the cheerleader last night that we hung around for. She's involved in basketball and cheer and in art. And then Alivia in the middle, she is in 8th grade. She is involved in volleyball, basketball, and she also does cheerleading. And then my bride, holding Tay, we've been married for 22 years. She grew up in Ohio. We met there at Harding. We moved back to Ohio for 3.5 years, served a congregation right outside Toledo, and then moved back and started working at Harding. And I'm in my 17th year. She has worked off and on different jobs depending on the needs of the parenting that we have. And right now, she takes just odd jobs here and there to support my addiction to working in Christian education. And then in the back, and he admitted to this is Carter. So my wife's name is Sara Jo. I think I forgot to mention her name. Carter, he's actually got his heels cocked on the wall because after I got the picture back, I'm like, are you this much taller than me? He's like, maybe. But he is actually, in the amount of time, he's grown about an inch in this past year, so he probably is that much taller than me now. And having hair really throws it off, because I don't know. Carter goes to school at Oklahoma Christian. He's a sophomore there. And so, me in my 17th year at Harding, he's going to Oklahoma Christian, and people are like, oh, is that weird? It's really not. It's awesome. I love OC. I love the experience that he has. It's going well. I've written him out of the will. But he won't really know that until I'm gone, and so it's fine. It's fine. It'll catch up to him eventually. So I said it a little bit jokingly, but a lot of seriousness to the fact that lots of experience with attempting parenting, lots of experience in talking to young people, but still very, very green in what's the very best way. And I've come to believe that there's not a best way. There is opportune times, but all of us are going to approach all of these topics a little bit differently because of our experiences and because of our different personalities. But if we can share the grounded foundation that we are striving to honor God, then I think that's what's being asked of us. We're going to be in Deuteronomy chapter 11 in just a moment. Is there anybody in here with the last name of Jones? Okay. With all due respect, you're not to participate in this. You know the expression, keeping up with the Joneses? Okay. Minus the couple that literally are the Joneses. Does anyone else consider yourself to be the family that everyone else should try to be like? Like you would actually say, and I guess you could participate. Maybe, Joneses, do you feel like everybody should try to live and look just like you? The sarcastic part of him is like, actually, yes. I saw it. It was a half grin, and then the conscience side was like, come on, man, be serious. You don't know this guy. No one in this room considers themselves, in the expression, the Joneses. I haven't ever met anyone that actually said, yeah, we're actually the model family. We are hopeful that everyone would watch our example and try to become that. But yet, the expression keeping up with the Joneses is not just a financial expression. It's an expression, I think, that we take on, whether we realize it or not, that we are trying to say and do how other people are doing it, and actually can get distracted from our whole goal being to honor God and to raise our children in the Lord. All of a sudden it becomes, well, if I did it like those folks, and then, okay, well, what do they think about my parenting? What do they think about the advice that I've given? And you don't have to be a parent. What do they think about the way that I've approached this topic? And now the bar that we've set is actually in compliance with who we're associated with at the moment. And we've lost the foundation. But if we can strive to always, in the forefront of our mind, strive to glorify God, it doesn't matter who we're associating with. It doesn't matter what parent does what. This came to light a few years ago. I was talking to a friend of mine, someone that's about my age, and our kids are kind of stair-stepped similarly. And we were talking about a particular movie, and actually I'll just tell you, the movie's Dumb and Dumber. And so it's one of those movies that like, man, that's hilarious, until you recommend it. And then you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about it. Yeah, and so we kind of rationalize those kind of things. So scold me later, hold that to the side. But the movie itself, I watched it with my son when he was quite a bit younger. And he was in middle school age. I didn't think a lot about it, even though there was moments, and this is how we've approached a lot of movies, that we'll watch this movie, but every time there's something that we think shouldn't be, or is there something that's off color, we talk about it. Well, his circle of friends found out that he had seen the movie, and they wanted to see the movie, and I wasn't aware of all this. Long story short, I found out, though, that some of my friends that are my age were allowing, because they said, well, Carter's dad, Zach, that's my name, he let Carter, and he's been a children's minister and a youth minister, and I'm like, oh no, goodness, can we stop it? Okay, I'll give you the Dumb and Dumber, but don't do anything else. Okay, and now it really made me gut check. So there is some accountability to this. So the whole idea that we're not to at all grow from each other, that's not what I'm meaning. But to make our bar set to be what another human is doing or saying, I think we're missing the point. If you could go to the next slide, please. Anybody in here that's got a green thumb that you've staked a tree before? You bought a young tree from a nursery and you actually staked it? Anybody? Small handful? Okay, good. So I can say anything you don't really know, so that's perfect. The few of you don't tell me the truth. This is just some of the things that I've learned in talking to others that have more experience. A lot of times when you buy a small tree from a nursery, it's already staked. And so it's to keep it, so it's going to grow and not fall over. It's going to grow in such a way that the nutrients it gets from the soil is properly placed within the tree. All my words, it makes me sound amazing that I know a lot about it, right? I've never really done it, but I've watched a lot of folks. I live in an area of the world where there's lots of farmers, and I've talked to different people, but I have found that everybody has a different opinion on it, on should you stake a tree or not. Some would say, absolutely not. You just worry about where you plant it. Others would say, yes, but for just a certain amount of time. And there's such thing as too much time. And then others would say, I don't think it really matters, but I have learned that you can stake a tree too tightly, you can stake a tree too loose, and actually make the tree grow in a way that it shouldn't because of the stake itself. So as we consider topics that we approach with young people, There are times that we will have a different approach. A kid will use the word strict or not strict or overbearing or not as much or more lenient, whatever phrases. But we as parents or as just being older than kids giving advice, all of us have a little bit of a different approach. And so I'm completely comfortable with us arguing over, should you stake a tree or not? What we do have to focus on is the soil. Everybody I've ever talked to and everything I Googled, everybody agreed that you need to have proper soil. Now, we can definitely have conversation on what type of nutrients are the best at what time, but everybody agreed, yes, of course, you have to have the proper soil. And so that's what I want us to look at today. I'm going to do something that's a little bit dangerous whenever you're speaking, and that's once everybody's gotten comfortable, they're in the groove, I'm going to actually ask you to stand up for just a moment. And I need you to go ahead and stand up and get enough arm space, if you can. You might have to spread out a little bit. You'll come back pretty soon. I need you enough arm space that you can actually turn like this without smoking somebody in the head. Okay? So get you a little arm space. So now I want you to, with your eyes open, everything's good, just standing here, I want you to twist around as far as you can and then hold it. So you're going, maybe go to your right, twist around as far as you can. Pick a point on that wall wherever you're pointing at. Maybe it's a door you're pointing at, maybe it's a window. Your eyes got to be able to see where you're pointing to, so don't let your arm go further than your eyes can see. See that point, stare at it. Okay, now swing back around to your normal standing position. Now what you're going to do is, some of you are like, boy, that's the most stretching I've done in a while. You're welcome. I want you to do it again, and this time get to that point and then go about 5 feet. Just estimate what would be about 5 feet past that point. Not with your arm, because obviously that would be impossible, right? But with your eyes, trail about 5 feet beyond that point and concentrate on that point. Go back and forth from the point where your finger was, stare at that, and then go about 5 feet beyond that, and then back and forth with your eyes. Original point, 5 feet beyond. Original point, 5 feet beyond. And then do that like 2 or 3 times, and on the last time, concentrate on the point that's 5 feet beyond that, and let whatever you're staring at burn a hole. Okay, so you might have been pointing at a wall, and now you're pointing at a window. Maybe you're pointing at this sign, now you're pointing at this sign. Whatever it may be, have that in your mind. So go ahead, right now, eyes open. Go to the point. You got to where you can, it's as far as you can go now. With your eyes, go 5 feet further. Go back and forth in your mind 2 or 3 times, and then focus on that 5 foot forward point. Get that in your mind. Once you've done that, go back to your standing position. Okay, now, visualize where you were on the 5 point without moving, 5 feet beyond the original point. So 5 feet beyond. Now, you've got your eyes open. I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to visualize that point. What did it look like? Once you have got it, if you were an artist, maybe you are, but you could actually draw it so clearly that someone else would know exactly what you're looking at. Keep your eyes closed. Turn your body, pointing this time. Keep your eyes closed all the way as far as you can get. And once you're there, if it's as far as you can get, I want you to open your eyes. All right, come back to your standing point. You can go back to your seat. Is there anybody that reached that point, about 5 feet beyond? You actually got pretty much 5 feet beyond where you were. Anybody get that? Anybody get maybe not all the way there, but closer than you were before? Okay? Anybody where it didn't move at all? Okay, so we got a smallish handful where it didn't move at all. Majority moves at least some, and quite a few, though, was still actually made it to the point. We are often restricted by what we don't concentrate on. So once we get into a routine of things, or this is as far as I can reach, and we've established that in our mind, then that's a fact. That's as far as we're willing to go, because that's as far as we're willing to give thought to. But then when somebody pulls us out of that, calls us out of that, and you were so kind to participate in what I've asked you to do, you actually took a moment to just focus on it. Nothing really happened. It was in your mind. You focused a little bit more on it. One little piece of what actually might have happened too, and I know it sounds kind of funny, but you were a little bit more stretched than you were before. Like it's real, right? Like the first time you try to touch your toes, still can't touch my toes, but I can get closer if I keep trying, right? What we're going to go through today together with all the different speakers and the conversations that we'll have, what I'm challenging you to do, challenging your mind, is just to go about 5 feet further than where you probably are. We're not trying to completely change everything. And no one's really expecting any of us when we leave here that we're going to be able to accomplish all of these things all at once to the fullest extent that we really want it. But can we get a little closer? And it's going to just take a little bit of meditation on it, a little bit of intentionality, and a little bit of allowing someone else to call you out of it. God is calling us out of that, right? In Deuteronomy chapter 11, next slide. Deuteronomy chapter 11. This question I've been chewing on for a bit ever since Matt reached out. Where in Scripture do we find a list of topics we should be willing to discuss with our children? Couldn't find it. But I found a passage that I think, oh man, that really fits. So you're not going to find a list that has comma, 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 right? But I found something that I think that the Spirit has opened up in a way that I have never read it with this context before. It's a powerful chapter, but in this context, it's even more powerful than what I had remembered. Look at Deuteronomy chapter 11. I'm going to give you a little bit of insight into my mind. When someone reads to me, I can concentrate for a little bit, but my mind goes in and out, in and out. But if I read it with them, it helps a little bit. But even then, my mind still goes in and out. I want us to read a pretty lengthy section here, and I'm going to call you to certain verses to make sure your mind focuses in on that. And maybe none of you are like me, and you're like, dude, I got it, we're fine. But if you are like me, that'll be helpful. I'm going to highlight some verses as we go. But let's start in verse 1, Deuteronomy chapter 11. Love the Lord your God and keep his requirements, his decrees, his laws, and his commands always. Remember today that your children were not the ones who saw and experienced the discipline of the Lord your God. His majesty, his mighty hand, his outstretched arm, the signs he performed and the things he did in the heart of Egypt, both to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and to his whole country. What he did to the Egyptian army, to its horses and chariots, how he overwhelmed them with the waters of the Red Sea as they were pursuing you, and how the Lord brought lasting ruin on them. It was not your children who saw what he did for you in the wilderness until you arrived at this place. And what he did to Dathan and Abiram, sons of Eliab the Reubenite, when the earth opened its mouth right in the middle of all Israel and swallowed them up with their households, their tents, and every living thing that belonged to them. But it was your own eyes that saw all these things, saw all these great things the Lord has done. Observe, therefore, all the commands I am giving you today. So what are those? So that you may have the strength to go in and take over the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess, and so that you may live long in the land the Lord swore to your ancestors to give to them and their descendants, a land flowing with milk and honey. The land you are entering to take over is not like the land of Egypt from which you have come, where you planted your seed and irrigated it by foot as in a vegetable garden. But the land you are crossing the Jordan to take possession of is a land of mountains and valleys that drinks rain from heaven. It is a land the Lord your God cares for. The eyes of the Lord your God are continually on it from the beginning of the year to its end. Verse 13, hang on to this. So if you faithfully obey the commands I am giving you today, to love the Lord your God and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, then I will send rain on your land in its season, both autumn and spring rains, so that you may gather in your grain, new wine, and olive oil. I will provide grass in the fields for your cattle, and you will eat and be satisfied. Be careful, or you will be enticed to turn away and worship other gods and bow down to them. Then the Lord's anger will burn against you, and he will shut up the heavens so that it will not rain, and the ground will yield no produce, and you will soon perish from the good land the Lord is giving you. Hang on to this, verse 18. Fix these words of mine in your hearts and minds, tie them as symbols on your hands, and bind them on your foreheads. Teach them to your children, talking about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates, so that your days and the days of your children may be many in the land the Lord swore to give your ancestors, as many as the days that the heavens are above the earth. If you carefully observe all these commands I am giving you to follow, to love the Lord your God, to walk in obedience to him, and to hold fast to him, then the Lord will drive out all these nations before you, and you will dispossess nations larger and stronger than you. Every place where you set your foot will be yours. Your territory will be extended from the desert to Lebanon and from the Euphrates River to the Mediterranean Sea. No one will be able to stand against you. The Lord your God, as he promised you, will put the terror and fear of you on the whole land wherever you go. Verse 26, see, I'm setting before you today a blessing and a curse. The blessing, if you obey the commands of the Lord your God that I am giving you today. The curse, if you disobey the commands of the Lord your God and turn away from the way that I command you today by following other gods which you have not known. When the Lord your God has brought you into the land you are entering to possess, you are to proclaim on Mount Gerizim the blessings and on Mount Ebal the curses. As you know, these mountains are across the Jordan westward toward the setting sun, near the great trees of Moreh, in the territory of those Canaanites living in the Arabah in the vicinity of Gilgal. You are about to cross the Jordan to enter and take possession of the land the Lord your God is giving you. When you have taken it over and are living there, be sure that you obey all the decrees and laws I am setting before you today. I don't want to be overly dramatic, and I don't want to take and force a context in a disrespectful way. But in many ways, because you're willing to tackle these topics that are going to be touched on today, we have a Jordan experience potentially ahead of us. Because if we become more comfortable to allow ourselves to have these conversations with each other, for one, and then especially with young people, God's going to bless it. But did you catch there in earlier parts of chapter 11 that what God first called them to do was to do it themselves, to honor God, to obey God, to keep his commands, and then teach those things to your children. But even earlier than that, he says something that it really caught me in just the right way in studying for this. He basically reminds them, look, you've experienced things that your kids don't know anything about. You ever feel like that? Yeah. Is that fair for you to lord that over them? No. It's to invite you into knowing that you actually have been shown something. You have seen the promises of God already. And you've seen it in a lot of ways that they haven't, just because of the amount of years that you've been on the earth. We didn't do anything that was more special than children. We just lived long enough to see some things. And that's what actually clouds our mind. Satan has used that because, oh man, I've experienced so much. If I bring that up, then this is going to happen. If I say that, then they're going to say this. And God is actually saying, you have a lot of experiences. I'm going to bless that. It's going to be fruitful. It's going to be good. But I'm going to need you to remind those coming after us what it was like. But when we're doing it in a way that's honoring God, it's not oh, you just wait. You don't know yet. You're not old enough. Well, when you get older, I admit I'm guilty of some of those expressions, trying to explain something. But when I'm at my best, I'm modeling it instead of demanding it. You know, just like all of our families are different, all of us do have different dynamics within our family. And we can't forget that there are even chemical makeups that are different within our young people. And how we communicate is going to always be different. And that's why it's so important not to just cookie cutter how someone else does it, but the modeling God, or striving to model after God. That's the part we're going to all share in common. Next slide. Next slide, please. Sorry. This scripture I have written next to my computer so that I'm seeing it every day. Also, from time to time, we'll have it on a sticky note at home. Everything that we do has to be guided by this. Because every topic, if I'm going to, the title of this lesson of yes, we can talk about that. You see, Deuteronomy 11 has already shown us that all topics are included when it comes to opportunities to grow closer to God. So yes, we can talk about that, and you say, well, what? Yes. You name it, we can talk about it, because it's already being talked about. It's on social media, it's in friend groups, it's in others that aren't striving necessarily to live for God. The topics are being discussed already. So it's not, yes, we can start the conversation. It's, yes, we better be a part of the conversation that's already going on. But if we don't do it through the spirit of James 1:19, it's going to make it really difficult. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to become angry on all of the topics. Now, I'm thankful for the topics that we're going to hit on today as we hear from these professionals that have come to share some of these thoughts. But any topic should be approached through this. And a student or a child, man, they can read through us. They know when we're being real, and they know when we're being honest. Next slide, please. I'm going to quickly go through some, what I call just practical takeaways that, and this is my list, and I'm going to invite you to write down definitely one, maybe even two. If you write down three or more, you're not likely to do all of them. Now, you can write them all down, but I mean, in choosing some to focus on or to try to implement into your life, if that's something that's important to you. One thing that works for me, and it doesn't mean I do it perfectly, but one thing that, when I'm at my best, is very helpful, is in every conversation, I try to have a takeaway. Not my takeaway of, boy, they're stubborn. That's the takeaway, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a takeaway that influences how I'm going to respond next. Either I'm going to learn something about myself, or I'm going to learn something about God, of what He expects through me. In every conversation, not just the heavy topics, but in every interaction that I have that's a longer conversation, I like to be able to ask myself, what's my takeaway? And I learned that from a mentor of mine. I was going through a scenario, and I was talking to this gentleman about it, and he said, well, what's your takeaway? I'm like, not to be in this scenario again? Like, I don't know. He said, well, if you're not growing from it, and you're not prepared to do something different next time, then you're just going to repeat it. So you need to have your takeaway. How are you going to grow from that? I don't push this on my kids. I don't tell them to do this whenever I talk to them and say, okay, what are your takeaways from what I just shared with you? I'm striving to model that. And a lot of times in a conversation that I'll have with a young person, I'll say, here's how I'm going to probably do this differently next time. And I may be hoping that they will see that for themselves too, but I'm being sincere that it's something that I'm going to strive to put into my life. And when our focus becomes honoring God and our focus becomes how am I going to grow from it, I feel like we have a better chance for the person we're talking to model that, as opposed to it's I've come with the solution to their problem. A few things for us, some practical takeaways. Throughout the day, I encourage you even just to kind of have your one or two takeaways that you're going to focus on, maybe to implement. These are just some that I've come across just in my own experiences, and you'll even recognize some of the phrases. They're borrowed, they're stolen, they've been used before. This is not unique to me, but it's things that have helped me. Harding was having a lectureship, this was 20 plus years ago, and there was a topic, how to not be boring. And I'm like, I'm in. Like, that would be awesome if I knew the solution to being boring. So I go to this class, I sit down, the teacher comes in, and I remember, this is shallow of me, and I'm sorry, but right when I walked in, I'm like, this guy is boring. What are we going to learn here? He's a friend of mine, so that's probably why I thought that. But as he started talking, we were 30 minutes into it, and it dawned on me. I'm kind of stubborn, so it took me 30 minutes for it to dawn on me. He talked about relationship the entire time. And then he said, if you haven't picked up on the fact, all of us have different skill sets. Some of us are really good at teaching. Some of us, that's not our strength, but we're good in public speaking in different ways, or it's in smaller groups, or it's whatever it may be. He said, so I don't really have that solution. I don't think anybody does. We're all just different. But we all have the ability to build a relationship. And when somebody cares about you and they know you care about them, you can actually get away with being boring. You can actually get away with not being really great at it, but they'll think you are because you cared, right? So what my takeaway from that of how to not be boring, I try to apply that just even in my own conversations with people of I'm overthinking trying to be cool or trying to be connected or trying to say something in just the right way. And sometimes I'll avoid even talking about something because I'm afraid I'm not going to do it right. The worst thing to do is not do it. We can always grow from it. I've heard the expression, don't major in minors. I've heard that expression before, and that's don't make a big deal about little things. But I want to spin that a little bit. I want to ask that we do major in the minors. And what I mean by that is when your son or your daughter or a young person is in conversation with you and they're telling you about something that you really don't care. You don't. And let's be real, like when you're young and as you get older, you think that you're going to just grow in maturity. No, we just know when we're supposed to be mature. We didn't just all of a sudden become more mature. We just know which context we can do that in. At least maybe is that how everybody else is doing it? Okay, forget I said that. But the maturity and being able to listen to, since this has been being recorded, I won't give you real specifics about my kids, but one of my kiddos likes to tell me every detail in a situation. The whole time I'm like, she doesn't read the Reader's Digest, or I would ask for the Reader's Digest version, but she's telling me something, I'm thinking, man, she's already said that. She said that already. We're repeating that. I love her to death, but it's a lot of detail. But whenever I engage in that, and I'm asking, tell me more type things, what comes from that is she'll share a lot about a lot of things. Because I majored in the minors, I made that important. Let me go through just some really quick, and I'd love to have conversations more. I'm blaming that game that went a little longer. Is that okay? Okay, good. What was that game called again? Cahoots, all right. Determine why you're wanting to approach a topic. Is it because, well, I went to that Saturday thing and they said we're supposed to talk about it? I mean, if you got to start somewhere, I guess that's okay, but why? Is it so that you can tell your friends that you've approached it? Does it have to be because you can see there's already a problem? Or could it just be that I'm striving to honor God in this? What's your rationale for it? Because we can get distracted. Remember Deuteronomy chapter 11, he said, be careful not to get distracted by the lowercase g gods, because you can get distracted from what's most important. Remember, you are a child of God, and I need to remember that I'm a child of God, leading a child of God. We use the expression, our children, my kids, that sort of thing. But that's temporary. It is a role, it's a responsibility, but it's temporary. I'm a child of God, striving to lead another child of God, temporary. And there will be a time where they're doing the same thing. Trust your village. I have a group of friends, and I can't take credit for it. My buddy said, hey, we've got 3 or 4, us dads have 3 or 4 kiddos here that are all buddies. Can we just meet the 4 sons, the 4 dads? And so I'm like, that's cool. This guy's he's a counselor, and I'm like, I don't even know what we're planning to talk about. We sat around and talked, and we all spoke value into, hey, young men, you see any of these guys in this room, any of these dads, you can go to any of them with any questions. And if you go to his dad and you didn't come to me, I'm not going to be mad, because I trust him. Trust your village. Take advantage of that. Ask your kids for advice. Say, hey, I've got this situation at work. I've got this thing I've been thinking about. What would you do? How do you think I should handle that? Speak value into them, and I think that they're going to open up the opportunity to be able to talk about any other topic. Be honest. We've mentioned that before. That probably goes without saying. Lord willing, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Fight the temptation to go home this evening and be like, all right, sit down. We've got about 3 hours of things to cover. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Look for those teachable moments. Capitalize on opportunities. Never be accused of what you know you didn't do. If anybody ever said, well, you didn't even say you love me. You didn't even offer to pray for me. You didn't even bring up the topic. Never allow that to be true. Somebody could say, you kind of fumbled on how you approached that. I'll take that all day because that means I tried. So never be accused of things that you know you didn't do, meaning you never even brought this up. You're right. I'd rather be accused of, that was an interesting way to approach that, than to say I never even tried. Embrace the cheesy. There are moments that they're just cheesy. It may be awkward. But when we embrace it and we're not bothered by it, I think it opens up that door. 2 more things. We're raising future 30-year-olds. We're not raising a 5-year-old. We're not raising a 10-year-old. We're not raising a 15-year-old. We're raising an adult who happens to be young. That's what happened to us, right? And so if we keep that mindset. Lastly, a quick story about Alivia, my middle daughter. When she was probably 7 or 8, I was putting her to bed at night. We have all of our bedtime routines, and every routine's a little bit different per kid. And putting her to bed, and she said, Dad? Yeah? So if I just didn't wake up, like, what would you do in the morning? I'm like, well, I'd be super sad. I hated to answer the too full. It would be really awful. Okay, well, I just thought that every time that we leave each other, what if that was the last time? I would think it would be important that, like, we should say something that's a big deal. Like, okay, well, what would we say? And she said, I think we should say love God. I said, this is a first grader. I'm like, sounds good. Love God. And it's more of an expression to you, I love God, you go and love God. And she said, love God. And I left, and our whole family says it. Ever since then, whenever you're leaving the house, whenever you're going to bed, I leave you with that. I'm not saying you need to incorporate that into your family. All of our families have our little quirks and our cool little neat sayings. But what it reminded to me as I left the door open, that God speaks to the hearts of the young people. He's not just looking at us just because we happen to be older to take care of these topics. He's working in their hearts as well, and I'm going to learn just as much from them as they're probably going to learn from me. Yes, we can talk about it.